I cannot believe my eyes. Sunny Hostin looked like a hostage reading a legal note on The View as the producers backstage panicked to avoid legal trouble over the panel stubbornly defaming Matt Gaetz by digging up past allegations, but that's just scratching the surface. I need to show you just how often The View has been forced to offer these legal notes, almost to the point that it has become their get-out-of-jail-free card for blatant lying. Watch the kind of language Sunny used here, and it will make sense.
What we really need to think about is the position that he has been nominated for by this president elect. To be the Attorney General means that you're responsible for the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice is one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the world. And it's very serious business. I mean, you have the Civil Rights Division, Antitrust Division, the Criminal Division, U.S. Attorney's offices, the FBI. And within the Department of Justice, you know, you have the sex crimes unit, which is what I was a part of, child sex crimes and child trafficking. How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her. Well, statutory sex doesn't require you to know what age the person is. It only requires the age. And so if these things
are true...
So wait a minute,
so if you're having sex with an underage girl,
yes,
she tells you she's 18,
yes,
and you have it anyway, you're still liable.
Yes, you
are.
It's
She's actually still only
it's
17.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. And so I'm deeply disturbed at the lack of judgment that we are already seeing from the president-elect.
You know the not-so-clever trick that Sunny is using here? She's practically lying by omission, which by some legal standards can rise to the qualification of slander. And the critical piece of info she's omitting is that last year prosecutors from across the board refused to even bring charges against Matt Gaetz owing to a lack of evidence and unreliable witness accounts. That means the matter never even reached the courts, and it's hard to even call these statements allegations in any legal sense, since they weren't even deemed worthy enough to stand a court trial. Remember that happened more than a year ago and under the Biden administration, and if Sunny, who's an attorney herself, doesn't realize that she's deliberately giving the false impression of credible allegations against someone, that could very easily land ABC and The View in legal trouble. The producers backstage panicked, wrote a hasty legal note on the teleprompter, and forced Sunny to read the text live on air.
Sunny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
Look at those empty eyes and cracking voices, and you'd be forgiven for thinking a gun was pointed to her head like a hostage, but those long few seconds that Sunny had to read that note have been picked up even by Matt Gaetz himself, and he posted a snarky response on X. And here's what I find interesting: no one was really digging up these settled past allegations against Matt before he was appointed the Attorney General by Donald Trump. And you see that by what the House Democrats are trying to do right now. They're trying to have the House Ethics Committee report on him released, which likely contains some unverified info that hasn't stood trial or investigation and could be picked up by the media to whip it up into a frenzy. Perhaps a better course of action for both the House Republicans and the Democrats would be to just end the deadlock over the ethics report and instead have prosecutors determine confidentially whether the allegation should move to court trial, and since that has already happened, releasing a report which is basically a draft of allegations and preliminary findings without a fair trial representation is likely to do more harm than good. There's no other proof of that than what you saw from The View as it tries to ignite a media trial before any court trial has even begun.
Aren't you disturbed a little bit by people?
I've been disturbed by him for
but aren't you disturbed? That's not my question. Aren't you a little bit disturbed, as we all should be, that it's his reputation for being a jerk that would take him out rather than the substance of what these women are saying?
I actually think there's a lot of Republicans who've called out
but they've known about this, and he's still there.
There were allegations that some photos and things were shared at work on the House floor. So this has been known for years.
The Ethics Committee has been investigating him to no avail.
No, my
Shouldn't we be
surprise has been
concerned about
numbed.
that?
See what I mean? What impression is Sunny Hostin trying to give to the layman that she knows will take away a very different message from those words? A court is at least a process all parties can get behind, and it's only so long before dragging someone's name through the mud like this eventually gets them into legal trouble, and guess what? It has already happened. It happened back in 2022 when Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA served them a legal letter to cease and desist from implying that racist bigots were invited at their rallies.
This what do you call it? This Turning Point conference with all the smoke? What are they, smoking something down there? Or it's like, whatever. Anyway, they were out there, neo-Nazis were in the front of out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs and the Nazi swastika and a picture of a so-called Jewish person with exaggerated features, just like Goebbels did during the Third Reich. It's the same thing, right out of that same playbook.
So on Monday, we talked about the fact that there were openly neo-Nazi demonstrators outside the Florida Student Action Summit of the Turning Point USA group. We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited or endorsed by Turning Point USA. So we apologize for anything we said that may have been unclear on these points.
They've clearly learned zero lessons, and it's only so long before the producers of the show just can't keep walking on eggshells trying to cover for every ill-informed rant and panelist makes. But that's apparently a new normal for The View. Right now, Matt Gaetz himself seems to have understood that he's a line of target for the media and has decided to withdraw on his own nomination. Writing on X last week, he said, quote, "I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday, and I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. There is no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one." Perhaps that's a wise decision for now. Matt Gaetz brought a fiery and unapologetic persona to the Trump campaign, and he's very easy to target by a mainstream media that loves taking sound bites and spinning them up. Here's an example.
Why is it that the women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions? Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
The media loves controversy, and the Trump presidency doesn't have to give it to them right now when they need to be focusing on putting together an administration. Former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi has taken Matt Gaetz' place as the nominee for the position, and Trump train has started to move ahead. Right now, the House representatives are expecting to meet once again to vote on whether the ethics report should be released, and we're likely to see the media try and catch him in a new web of controversy over it. But let me know in the comments what you think, because The View is perhaps one of those media names that's cutting off its nose to spite its face as it flies too close to the legal trouble sun with antics like this. I think we're going to see all of that coverage toward January as we get closer to Trump's inauguration.